Holy crap! The city is being attacked. Being attacked by what? By that.
You will all be destroyed.
Be destroyed by who?
By me. The, passive voice monster.
Oh no, not you again. I always knew this day would come. Brady, wait, what is that thing?
Stepped on a fire hydrant.
Gosh darn it, this is a bad time for my mech suit to be in the shop. This'll have to do.
Brady, what is that thing out there? That is the passive voice monster. Let's just say he and I have some history. And this time, I'm gonna settle the score. Okay, so you've seen this thing before. But tell me, what is passive voice? Well, I thought you'd never ask. We don't think about it very often, but there are actually two ways to write verbs in a sentence. We call them active voice and passive voice. Active voice is just normal. Everyday speech, 99% of everything you say is in active voice. But when we sit down to write, especially when we write essays, the passive voice monster likes to come to town and start making us say weird things. To understand how passive voice works, you have to understand that sentences have a doer and a receiver, a subject and a direct object, for the 5 of you out there who care what that means. In a sentence like, I shot Ted in the foot, I am the doer because I'm the one doing something. Ted is the receiver because he received that bullet. And shot is the verb because that's what I did. This sentence is in active voice, the normal way to write something. To make it in passive voice, the doer and the receiver need to be flipped. In passive voice, we would have said, Ted was shot in the foot. By me. Ted is still the receiver and I am still the doer. But the order has been flipped because in passive voice, the receiver comes before the doer. It's crazy. Instead of saying, Jeff stood on the table, you'd say, the table was stood on by Jeff. Instead of, I went to the store, you'd say, the store was went to by me. It's crazy to talk like that, and passive voice needs to just go away already.
So much fun has been had by me.
But as crazy as it is, people use passive voice unwittingly because it isn't always as obvious to spot as in those previous examples. Normally it'll show up in research reports and essays like this one. Raisins have long been thought to be the worst thing on the entire planet. 500 kids from different backgrounds were given raisins as a snack, but the offering was refused by all of them. When asked why, it was said to be largely due to the fact that the raisins were thought to be chocolate chips until their lies were revealed. That entire passage is in passive voice. And because it's in passive voice, it's hard to understand. Because it's hard to understand, we tend to think that it sounds like a smart person wrote it, but actually, I wrote it. And even I think it sounds stupid. It's long, overcomplicated, and it messes with your mind because you expect it to be in active voice because you can reasonably expect something to be because most people are smart enough not to use it.
Humans, no harm can be done to me by your military.
That monster is out there destroying our city and, more importantly, our writing. So how do we stop it? First of all, we need to understand how to tell when the passive voice monster is rearing its ugly head in our writing. There are 3 ways we can do this. First of all, look for the word by near any of your verbs. If you see it, then it's probably in passive voice. If something is being done by someone, then the doer and receiver have been flipped. Another way to spot the monster is to look at the verbs was shot, were believed, have been thought. These all have something in common. They start with a form of to be, was, were, is, will be, etc. When a verb starts with a form of to be, then it's in passive voice. Simple as that. But sometimes it's really hard to spot passive voice, because the monster likes to kill the doers in the sentence. Only the receiver will survive his rampage. It's as if I were to say Ted was shot in the foot.
Brady, find a new example.
I don't have to say who shot him, because in passive voice, the doer is usually dead. You can tell when the passive voice monster has killed the doer in your sentence by adding the phrase, by the passive voice monster. If you can add this phrase and still have the sentence make sense, then you know for a fact that your sentence is in passive voice. Let's take another look at our report about raisins. We can find that the passive voice monster has killed all but one of the doers, and he is hiding in there all over the place. Raisins have long been thought
By the passive voice monster.
to be the worst thing on the entire planet. 500 kids from different backgrounds were given raisins as a snack,
By the passive voice monster.
but the offering was refused by all of them. When asked why, it was said
By the passive voice monster.
to be largely due to the fact that the raisins were thought to be chocolate chips,
By the passive voice monster.
until their lies were revealed.
By the passive voice monster.
Wherever you can add that phrase, it means the passive voice monster is hiding. And if you ever want to fix the sentence and put it back into active voice, you need to figure out who the monster has killed and replaced. Once we know who the subject is supposed to be, we can reverse the order of the doer and receiver to put the sentence back into active voice, like it's supposed to be. Everyone has long thought that raisins are the worst thing on the entire planet. We gave 500 kids from different backgrounds raisins as a snack, but they all refused the offering. When asked why, the children said it was largely due to the fact that they thought the raisins were chocolate chips, until they revealed the cookies' lies. It's despicable. Seeing that monster kill all of those doers, hiding their bodies and ruining the sentence. It's gone on long enough. The only way to save our writing once and for all is to kill the passive voice monster, and I'm gonna do it. Hold on, stop. Don't you think you're overreacting just a little bit? Overreacting? Ted, you have no idea what this thing is capable of! This is the end of the line, monster!
You're too late, Brady. Your paper has already been ruined.
Ruined by who?
By me. And now your paper will be given a D+ by your professor.
Passive voice is a monster, and it has to be stopped. Stopped by who? Stopped by me! Gosh darn it! That should have been implied by the last sentence. So then, despite its size and desire to step on buildings, maybe passive voice isn't that much of a monster. Maybe you're letting your personal grudge get in the way of truth. Don't you think people deserve truth?
Your buildings are being stepped on.
Okay, so there are a few times when passive voice is okay. Like I said, at least 1% of everything we say is in passive voice. Sometimes that's just what feels natural. Some words and phrases are actually used in passive voice more often than not. How many times have you heard somebody say something like, "Sorry, I was distracted"? I was really surprised by how tall that building was. My voice has been described as ear grating. I don't have to be told twice. All of those are in passive voice, and you don't think about it because it sounds natural to say them like that. Sometimes removing the doer is the right thing to do, like when it's obvious who's doing something because you've already said it. Or if you need the anonymity, or simply don't know who did something. Think again about the sentence, "Ted was shot." What if we have no idea who shot him? What if he just turned up dead one day and we never solved the mystery? Either you use passive voice to leave out the doer, or you say someone shot Ted, and I think it sounds a lot more natural to just leave out the doer. Or think about the essay that I read to you. The main focus of that essay should be on the raisins, so it makes more sense to have the raisins front and center at the beginning of a sentence, right? Well, think of the difference between passive voice, raisins have long been thought, and active voice, everyone has long thought that raisins. Using passive voice lets you put the raisins at the focus of the sentence, creating a stronger subject, and honestly, making a little bit more sense. Also, passive voice is a really easy way to eliminate first-person pronouns like I, you, and we. In formal writing, we need to eliminate them sometimes. It's the difference between saying 500 children were given ... and we gave 500 children ... The truth is, you should consider all of your alternatives and not just blindly choose the active voice over the passive voice. You might find that the best solution is a mixture of both. Passive voice monster, I owe you an apology. I was ready to kill you, but you're not even completely evil.
You are forgiven, Brady. The lesson I came here to teach has been learned by you. Now I must go until I am needed again.
Thank you, passive voice monster. You know, I've sure learned a lesson today. Not to shoot your brother unnecessarily and to think of better examples. Nah, the passive voice might not be the best option, but it's okay as long as it's used in small doses, and you consider the alternatives first. Passive voice really isn't a monster. You just stepped on a hospital. Yes, it did. You want to change your opinion about him? Too late now. Show's over.